The first thing I heard after dying was the recording that ruined my life. Question 1. The calm woman's voice said, bright and merciless, through a pair of school-issued headphones. Where does the speaker plan to meet her friend? I opened my eyes so violently that my forehead nearly hit the desk. My hands were clenched around a sharpened pencil. My answer sheet was blank. The room smelled like disinfectant, printer paper, nervous sweat, and cheap plastic headphones warmed by 200 anxious students. For 3 whole seconds, I thought hell had chosen a very specific form of torture. Then I saw the blue listening exam booklet in front of me, the sticker with my candidate number, and the girl sitting one desk ahead of me with her perfect posture, perfect hair ribbon, and my black headphones looped casually around her neck like she had been born owning everything I touched. My stomach dropped so hard, I tasted metal. I knew this room. I knew this day. I knew the exact second my future had been stolen the first time. And I knew, before the recording reached question 2, that heaven, hell, or whatever cruel office handled second chances had sent me back to the morning of the National English Listening Examination. In my last life, I failed that exam by 2 points. 2 points became a rejected scholarship, a withdrawn university recommendation, a mother who cried quietly into utility bills, and a guidance counselor who told me to adjust my dreams to match my character. It was not just that I failed. It was how I failed. My assigned headphones cut out during section 2, then screeched during section 3, and by section 4 they produced nothing but a faint electronic hum. I raised my hand, but the invigilator frowned as if I had chosen a dramatic moment to perform. The backup set arrived with 5 minutes left. I guessed my way through half the paper, submitted it with shaking hands, and walked out to find everyone already whispering. By lunch, the story had changed. I had not suffered equipment failure. I had tampered with the exam room audio. I had brought personal headphones. I had tried to gain an unfair advantage. And the person who cried in front of the disciplinary panel, saying she only wanted to protect the school's reputation, was the same girl who had borrowed my headphones before the exam because hers were too tight, and then returned me a broken school set with my candidate sticker peeled onto it. Her name was Serena Vale. She scored full marks. The newspapers called her a language prodigy. The principal called her the pride of St. Aurelia Academy. I called her a thief, but only once, and only in a locked bathroom stall where no one could punish me for being accurate. Now she was sitting one desk ahead of me again. Alive. 17. Untouched by consequences. The girl who had stepped over my collapsed future with polished shoes and an innocent smile. She tilted her head slightly as the instructions played, and the left cushion of my headphones brushed against her collarbone. I knew those headphones because my father had bought them secondhand from a repair shop, then spent a night replacing one wire so I could practice listening drills without the apartment traffic swallowing half the words. They were not expensive, but they were mine. In the first life, Serena had asked to borrow them during the warm-up period, voice trembling prettily, saying the school headphones hurt her ears, and she had a migraine. I had been stupid. No, not stupid. Kind. There is a difference, but kind girls are often buried under the word stupid because it makes the burial easier to justify. I gave them to her. She gave me a school pair. That school pair was not merely faulty. Later, after everything burned, a lab technician cousin told me the wiring had been deliberately scraped near the jack. Someone had made sure it would fail under continuous playback. Someone who knew exactly when the exam would begin. The room had not started the actual questions yet. This was still the audio check. The invigilator, Mr. Harlow, stood at the front with a clipboard and the expression of a man who considered student problems a personal insult. 2 assistant teachers paced the aisles. The wall clock showed 8:47. The real exam would begin at 8:50. 3 minutes. 3 minutes was more time than I had ever been given before disaster. My pulse tried to claw its way out of my throat, but my mind turned cold. The strange thing about Rebirth is that people imagine you return wise, composed, shining with revenge. You do not. You return terrified. You return with the memory of your mother's face when the scholarship letter never came. You return with the sound of your own name being dragged through a staff meeting you were not allowed to enter. You return with every insult still fresh enough to bleed. But terror can sharpen into something useful if you hold it by the right end. I lifted my hand. Serena did not turn around. She knew I was meek in this moment. She knew the old me would sit quietly, embarrassed to make trouble before an exam. That was her first mistake. I stood up. Mr. Harlow's eyes snapped to me. Sit down. Audio check is not finished. His tone carried down the rows. A few students looked up. Serena's shoulders stiffened, but she still did not turn. I kept my voice low, clear and polite, the way girls learn to speak when men with clipboards are waiting to call them hysterical. Sir, the headphones on candidate 118 are my personal property. They were taken from my desk. I need them returned before the exam begins. The room changed temperature. Not literally, of course, but every head within 5 rows shifted, as if a draft had passed. Serena turned halfway, eyes wide, lips parted in that delicate little wound of surprise she used whenever she wanted adults to imagine her incapable of anything more aggressive than breathing. Mara, she whispered, using my name like we were close enough for betrayal to be intimate. You said I could use them. You said you didn't mind. In my first life, that whisper would have cornered me. It was soft, and soft things convince people they are harmless. This time I smiled. No, Serena. You asked. I said no. Then they disappeared while I was signing the attendance sheet. That was not exactly how it had happened in the original timeline, but the best revenge is not always a recording played backward. Sometimes it is a corrected version of the truth delivered before the liar finishes arranging the stage. Mr. Harlow walked toward us, with irritation already folded into his brow. Both of you, enough. This is a national exam, not a lost and found dispute. Serena touched the ear cup gently, like a saint touching a relic. Sir, I promise these are mine. I've used them all semester. A laugh almost escaped me. All semester. She was already adapting. That was what people never understood about Serena. She did not lie like a panic student. She lied like a pianist. Her fingers found the right keys before anyone realized music had started. But I had lived through the whole song once. I knew the chorus. I reached into the side pocket of my blazer and pulled out the tiny paper receipt my father had taped to the headphone case for warranty. In my first life, I had thrown it away after the scandal because looking at it made me sick. In this life, it was still there, folded twice, soft at the creases. Serial number is written here, I said. And my father scratched a small M under the left hinge because the repair shop mixed up orders. The assistant teacher closest to us, Miss Chen, took the headphones before Serena could react. She turned the left hinge toward the fluorescent light. For one heartbeat, nobody spoke. Then Miss Chen's eyebrows lifted. There is an M. The sound that went through the room was not loud. It was worse than loud. It was a contained, collective intake of breath, the kind people make when a stage curtain slips before the actors are ready. Serena's face changed and changed again, shock melting into hurt, hurt hardening into accusation, accusation being quickly painted over by tears. I didn't know, she said. I thought they were mine. We have the same model. We did not. Her family could afford headphones that cost more than my mother's monthly grocery budget. But Mr. Harlow was already impatient with the disruption. He took my receipt, glanced at it, then thrust the headphones back toward me.
Fine.
Candidate 117, take your property. Candidate 118, use the assigned equipment. No more interruptions. I took my headphones. Their familiar weight settled around my ears like a verdict delayed, but not denied. Serena faced forward slowly. I saw the back of her neck redden above her collar. It should have felt satisfying. It did not. Not yet. Because the moment I reclaimed my headphones, the timeline shifted, and I had no idea what new trap might spring in the space created by my refusal. The exam began at 8:50 sharp. The first section was easy. I remembered some answers from my last life, but memory was unreliable because panic had blurred that day into a smear of numbers and shame. Still, the recording was clear. Every consonant landed cleanly. Every pause felt generous. My pencil moved steadily. In front of me, Serena sat too still. She usually answered listening questions with graceful speed, pencil gliding like she was transcribing fate. Now the tip hovered. Her shoulders tightened. By question 7, she lifted one hand and pressed the school headphone tighter against her right ear. By question 8, she adjusted the jack. By question 9, she froze. I did not look at her for long. I did not need to. I knew that posture. I had worn it in my last life. The creeping horror when audio begins to fade. The urge to deny it because accepting it would mean accepting disaster. The desperate little bargain with the universe. Maybe it will come back before the next question. Maybe I missed only one word. Maybe I can infer the answer from context. Section 1 ended. 30 seconds of silence. Then Section 2 began, and Serena raised her hand. Mr. Harlow walked over with the expression of a man being asked to move a mountain during his lunch break. Serena whispered something. He bent closer. She whispered again, more urgently. The assistant teacher brought a backup set. For one dizzy moment, a cruel part of me wondered if the universe had simply transferred my old suffering to her. Then I noticed something else. When Serena unplugged the school headphones, she did it too quickly, her hand covering the jack. Not panic. Concealment. She was not surprised they were failing. She was surprised they were failing on her. That distinction mattered. My pencil stopped over question 13. In my first life, the broken pair had reached me from her hands. Now, because I had taken mine back, the broken pair had remained where it was originally meant to sit, on her desk. She had prepared it as a weapon and then accidentally kept hold of the blade. The replacement set arrived, but national exam rules were cruelly specific. The recording would not be paused unless the audio failure affected the room system, not an individual headset. Serena could continue, but lost time would not be restored. She put on the backup headphones with trembling fingers. A tear slipped down her cheek, so perfect and shiny that even I almost admired the craftsmanship. A student who rose away whispered, "Poor Serena. Poor Serena. Poor girl with the sabotaged headphones she prepared for someone else. Poor genius whose perfect score required stolen equipment," and another girl's silence. The old Mara would have burned with resentment, so hot it became clumsy. The new Mara lowered her eyes, answered question 14, and waited. Revenge, I had learned from watching Serena, did not require shouting. It required timing. The exam moved into Section 3, the hardest part, a fast dialogue between two students arranging a research presentation. In my last life, this was where the hum swallowed everything. I had guessed B for 4 questions in a row because B felt less desperate than leaving blanks. This time, I heard the boy say, not the museum archive, the community library, and I circled C with a steadiness that felt almost holy. Behind me, someone coughed. In front of me, Serena erased so hard the desk shook. The invigilator's shoes clicked up and down the aisle. The fluorescent lights hummed. Somewhere inside the school, a bell rang for younger students beginning homeroom, ordinary life continuing outside the sealed pressure chamber of our future. And then came the pattern interruption I had not expected. The recording stopped. Not paused. Stopped. A clean-cut slice through the sentence mid-word. The entire exam hall lifted its head. Mr. Harlow frowned at the console. Ms. Chun rushed to the audio desk. Another teacher checked the cable. My blood chilled. This had not happened before. In the original timeline, only my headset failed. The room audio had continued perfectly. Now the main system had cut out during Section 3, Question 22, with 200 students staring forward and the national exam clock still running. Murmurs rose, nervous and sharp. Mr. Harlow barked for silence, but his own face had lost color. For one terrifying second, I wondered if my change had triggered a larger disaster. Then Serena turned around. Not fully, just enough for her eyes to meet mine. Through her tears, through her panic, there was calculation. Her lips formed 2 silent words. Your fault. The accusation hit deeper than it should have, because I knew what came next in a world governed by cowardly adults. If a system failed after I had made a fuss about headphones, they would stitch the 2 events together and call the seam evidence. Mr. Harlow was already looking at me. So were half the students. The room wanted a story, and Serena had spent years training everyone to accept hers first. Ms. Chan whispered with the technician at the front. The console lights blinked red. A second assistant teacher opened the back door, letting in a slice of hallway noise. Students shifted. Someone said my name. Not loudly. That was worse. Names whispered in crowds become ropes. I inhaled, held the breath, and did the one thing the old Mara never would have dared to do during a national exam. I raised my hand again. Mr. Harlow's head snapped toward me. Candidate 117, unless you are on fire, put your hand down. My hand stayed up. Sir, before the exam resumes, please check the auxiliary cable under Candidate 118's desk. Serena went white, not pale. White, as if all the blood in her body had received evacuation orders. What, she said, but the word cracked.
I had not planned to say it.
I had not known there was an auxiliary cable under her desk. Not exactly. But Rebirth does not return only facts. Sometimes it returns instincts sharpened by old bruises. In my last life, after the scandal, I remembered seeing Serena kneel beside her desk before the exam, pretending to tie her shoe. I remembered the brief glint of a silver connector near her ankle. I remembered dismissing it because I had been trained to dismiss anything that might make a powerful girl uncomfortable. Now, with the room audio dead and Serena's face betraying her, the memory clicked into place. Mr. Harlow's jaw tightened. This is absurd. But Miss Chun, bless every hidden backbone in quiet teachers, was already walking down the aisle. It will take 5 seconds, she said. Serena pushed her chair back slightly, blocking the space under her desk. There's nothing there, she said. Her voice had gone soft again, but softness had lost its magic. Too many students had seen her color drain. Ms. Chun crouched. Serena's hand darted down. I stood. Not all the way, just enough for my chair legs to scrape. Everyone heard it. Ms. Chun looked up. Serena froze. Then Ms. Chun reached under the desk and pulled out a small black device no larger than a lipstick tube, connected by a thin cable to the shared audio line running beneath the row. The exam hall exploded. Mr. Harlow shouted. Students gasped, stood, sat, leaned, whispered, pointed. Serena began crying loudly now, but it was too late. The device hung from Ms. Chen's fingers like a dead insect. It's not mine, Serena sobbed. I don't know what that is. Someone put it there. In my first life, that sentence had been aimed at me in a disciplinary room. I had said, I don't know what that is, about the tampered headset they placed in my bag. Nobody believed me because I did not cry beautifully. I cried like a person drowning. Serena cried like a painting. This time, however, the device had been under her desk, attached to her row, discovered after my direct request, while my stolen headphones had already been returned with proof of ownership. Even Mr. Harlow could not turn that into my guilt without spraining logic beyond repair. The national exam procedures descended on the hall like a storm. The recording was halted officially. The room was sealed. Students were instructed to place pencils down and remain seated. The school's exam coordinator, Vice Principal Arden, arrived with 2 external supervisors from the examination board. One of them, a severe woman in a gray suit, photographed the device before touching anything. The other collected Serena's answer sheet, headset, desk label, and candidate card into separate evidence envelopes. Serena kept saying she felt sick. I believed her. Consequences often upset people who thought they had purchased immunity. When the external supervisor asked who had raised the concern, Mr. Harlow pointed to me with visible reluctance. Every face turned again. This time the whisper of my name felt different. Not rope. Knife. I gave my statement in the back corner of the hall while the other students sat under enforced silence. I kept it factual, clean, impossible to dismiss as jealousy. My personal headphones had been taken. I proved ownership. Candidate 118 was given the school-issued headphones originally on her desk. That pair malfunctioned. Then the main audio cut out. I remembered seeing movement near the audio cable before the exam, so I requested a check. I did not call Serena a thief. I did not say she had destroyed me in another life. I did not say I had watched her accept a scholarship built on my grave. I said only what could be verified. The woman in the gray suit listened without interrupting. When I finished, she asked, "Why did you notice the cable?" I looked at Serena, who was now surrounded by adults as if wealth were a medical condition requiring specialists. Because when something goes wrong, I said, the first person blamed is usually the person with the least protection. I wanted the room checked before anyone chose a convenient explanation. That sentence traveled. I watched it move from the supervisor's face to Ms. Chen's, from Ms. Chen's to two students nearby, from them to the rows behind. A sentence can be a match if it lands in a room soaked with the right fuel. The board suspended the session for 40 minutes while technicians inspected the system. During that time, no one was allowed to leave. Serena's mother arrived anyway.
Of course she did.
Mrs. Vale came in wearing pearls, a cream coat, and the expression of someone entering a shop where the staff had misplaced her order. She did not look at me at first. People like her do not look at obstacles until they are forced to step over them. She went straight to Vice Principal Arden, lowered her voice, and began the velvet pressure performance I had once watched through a disciplinary room window. Words like misunderstanding, reputation, migraine, pressure, gifted child. Then the gray-suited supervisor said, loudly enough for the nearest rows to hear, "Madam, this is now an examination security incident. You may wait outside." Mrs. Vale blinked. The pearls did not help. Serena saw her mother being escorted out and changed tactics so abruptly it was almost beautiful. She stopped sobbing. She swayed. Her eyes rolled slightly. She fainted into Ms. Chen's arms with the delicacy of a falling silk scarf. In my first life, a faint would have ended the interrogation and begun the sympathy. This time, the external supervisor simply called the nurse, documented the time, and ordered that Serena remain under observation without access to her phone. That last part broke the performance. Serena's eyes opened too quickly.
I saw it.
Ms. Chen saw it. The supervisor definitely saw it. "My phone," Serena whispered. "I need to call my mother." "Your guardian has been notified," the supervisor said. "Your phone will remain sealed until the board determines whether it contains exam-related evidence." For the first time all morning, Serena looked genuinely afraid. The exam resumed after the board switched us to a backup audio system and marked the disruption officially. All students were given adjusted timing for the lost section except candidate 118, whose paper had been removed pending investigation. Serena did not sit the rest of the listening exam. She was escorted to the nurse's office with an assistant supervisor on one side and Ms. Chun on the other. As she passed my desk, she leaned close enough for only me to hear. "You think this saves you," she whispered. "You have no idea what you touched." The old me would have trembled. The new me did tremble. But inside, beneath the tremor, something smiled with teeth. Because she had just confirmed what the evidence had not yet proven. There was more. A simple cheater begs. A cornered conspirator threatens. I finished the exam with hands that shook only twice. The last section was a monologue about a museum volunteer program, and I caught every detail. Opening hours. Registration deadline. The reason the speaker preferred email. It felt absurdly ordinary after sabotage and fainting and external supervisors, but maybe that is how futures are rebuilt. Not with thunder, but with one correctly circled answer after another. When the final tone played, the room remained silent. Nobody rushed to celebrate. Nobody compared answers loudly. The exam had become something larger than a test. It had become a crime scene with answer sheets. As we filed out row by row, students looked at me in a way I had never experienced in my first life. Some with suspicion, yes. Some with awe. Some with the delicious terror of people realizing the school's golden girl might have been standing on a trapdoor all along. My best friend, Ellen, grabbed my wrist the second we cleared the hall. In the first life, she had believed me for exactly 3 days before her parents told her to distance herself from academic misconduct. I did not blame her anymore. Not fully. Fear is contagious in schools where recommendation letters decide whether your family's sacrifices become success or debt. This time, her grip was fierce. "Mara," she hissed, dragging me behind a stairwell pillar. What just happened? Why did Serena have your headphones? Why was there spy stuff under her desk? Why did you look like you expected it? The question nearly undid me. I wanted to tell her everything. I wanted to say, I died at 23 in a rented room above a pharmacy after working 3 jobs to pay for a degree I never wanted, and the last thing I saw was Serena's interview about fairness in education. I wanted to say, I came back with all my failures folded under my tongue. Instead, I said, I think she planned to sabotage me. I don't know how far it goes yet. Ellen's face hardened in a way I had never seen before. Then we find out. Those 4 words changed the second life more than any accusation in the exam hall. In the first life, I had fought alone. Alone, evidence looks like obsession. Alone, suspicion looks like bitterness. Alone, even truth can be dismissed as noise. But Ellen had a gift for noticing what adults overlooked because she seemed harmless while doing it. She was short, round-cheeked, always chewing strawberry gum, and possessed the memory of a courtroom stenographer when people underestimated her. By lunch, she had collected 3 separate accounts. Serena had arrived early and insisted on sitting at desk 118 even though seating was assigned randomly. Serena had asked a junior prefect where the audio junction box was for a media club setup. Serena had borrowed a silver tool from the robotics room yesterday and returned it wiped clean. None of that proved exam sabotage by itself. Together, it smelled like smoke under a locked door. The school tried to control the story before last period. Vice Principal Arden called an emergency assembly for senior students and delivered a speech about technical irregularities, ongoing review, and the importance of avoiding speculation. He did not mention Serena. He did not mention the device. He certainly did not mention my headphones. But students are not stupid. They are merely treated that way by adults who forget they built half their personalities on screenshots. By the time the assembly ended, 3 versions of the truth were circulating. Version 1, Serena had hacked the exam to steal answers. Version 2, I had planted evidence because I was jealous. Version 3, my personal favorite for sheer stupidity, the listening exam was haunted. I let the rumors move. Rumors are like floodwater. If you try to dam them with bare hands, you drown. Better to wait until the current carries something useful to shore. It arrived at 4:12 p.m. in the form of a message from an unknown number. The text contained one image.
No caption. No greeting.
Just a photo taken through the glass panel of the audio room the previous afternoon. Serena stood inside with Mr. Harlow. Between them on the table lay a pile of school headphones, candidate stickers, and what looked like the same black device Ms. Chun had pulled from under her desk. Mr. Harlow was not stopping her. He was handing her something. My skin went cold in a way the July air could not explain. The first life rearranged itself in my mind. Mr. Harlow had been the invigilator who ignored my raised hand. Mr. Harlow had later testified that I seemed agitated before the exam. Mr. Harlow had found the tampered headset in my bag. I had always thought he disliked me because I was poor and inconvenient. I had not considered the simpler possibility. He was part of it. I showed Ellen. For once, she stopped chewing gum. Mara, she said slowly, we need to send this to the board. Not yet. The words came out before I fully understood why. She stared at me as if I had suggested mailing it to Serena with a thank you card. I zoomed in on the image. The device was visible, yes, but blurry. Harlow's hand was visible, but not what he held. Serena's face was reflected in the glass, distorted by glare. Enough to raise suspicion, not enough to survive a parent with lawyers. In the first life, I lost because Serena controlled the order of evidence. She released what made her sympathetic first, then buried the rest under procedure. This time I needed the whole chain. Who sent the photo? Why anonymously? What did they want? And most importantly, how deep did the school's involvement go? Because a student can cheat for a score. A teacher risks his career only if the prize is bigger than one girl's ego. That night, I did not tell my mother. She came home from the clinic with compression marks from her shoes on her feet and asked how the exam went while cutting green onions into instant noodles to make them feel less like surrender. I said, better than expected. She smiled with tired relief. I knew it. You practiced so hard. The guilt nearly knocked the breath out of me. In the first life, she had defended me until the school threatened legal action for defamation. She sold her wedding bracelet to pay the appeal fee. She apologized to me while doing it, as if poverty were a personal failure she had committed against her child. I watched her stir noodles and made a silent promise, so sharp it felt like swallowing glass. This time, she would not apologize for me. This time, every person who used our lack of power as permission would learn exactly how expensive I could become. The next morning, St. Aurelia Academy looked unchanged from the outside. Ivy on brick walls, banners advertising excellence, parents dropping students in cars with leather seats, the bronze statue of the founder pointing heroically toward a future he had never intended for girls like me. Inside, the school vibrated with suppressed scandal. Serena was absent. Mr. Harlow was on administrative leave, though the secretary said it in the cheerful tone schools use when adults are being quietly removed from corridors. My locker had been opened. Not obviously. That would have been too honest. The lock still worked, but my books were a centimeter out of place, my spare hair tie missing, and the old mint tin where I kept emergency coins had been moved from the back left corner to the front. I stood very still. Whoever searched it wanted something small. A note. A device. A receipt. Proof of contact. Or maybe they wanted to plant something and got interrupted. I closed the locker, turned, and found Serena's cousin blocking the corridor. Camille Vale was not beautiful in Serena's delicate way. She was sharp. Sharp cheekbones, sharp eyeliner, sharp smile. She graduated 2 years earlier, but still appeared at school events like a decorative threat. "Mara," she said warmly, "can we talk?" Around us, students slowed without admitting they were slowing. Camille's family donated the language lab. Her mother chaired the alumni scholarship committee. Her father owned 3 tutoring centers that somehow always knew exam trends before anyone else. In my first life, Camille had written a public post about integrity, never naming me, but describing my case clearly enough that strangers sent me messages telling me to disappear. I looked at her expensive shoes, then at her smile. No, the word landed between us with a satisfying lack of decoration. Camille laughed softly. Still emotional from yesterday? Understandable. But you should be careful. These investigations can become broad. There it was. Not a threat, exactly. A forecast. I tilted my head. Are you here as a family member, an alumna, or a warning label? A boy by the lockers choked on his drink. Camille's smile thinned. You're very confident for someone whose academic record is about to be examined. In the first life, that would have worked. My record was good, but not flawless. I had one late assignment from when my mother was sick, one disciplinary note for working cafeteria shifts during a study hall I could not afford to waste, one teacher comment about reluctance to participate in group activities, which rich students translated as antisocial, and teachers translated as difficult. This time, I stepped closer. Then examine it. But make sure Serena's is open first. Start with last year's regional debate listening round. Ask why the audio file on her practice drive was created before the official release date. Camille's eyes flickered. A tiny movement. Enough. I had guessed, but her face confirmed there was a history. The beautiful thing about schools obsessed with perfection is that their lies leave paperwork. Awards, certificates, recommendation letters, training logs, access records, tutoring schedules, donor acknowledgements. Every polished achievement casts a shadow in a database somewhere. Ellen and I spent lunch in the library pretending to revise while building a timeline. Serena's major listening-related victories all shared 3 features. Mr. Harlow supervised or coached. The Vail Foundation sponsored the event or prize. And at least one student who had been expected to challenge, Serena suffered a sudden technical, health, or conduct issue. A boy named Adrian lost audio during the interschool French listening contest. A transfer student named Noor was disqualified for using unauthorized notes during a mock exam. A scholarship candidate from Westbridge Academy missed the speaking finals after receiving the wrong room number. Each incident alone was unfortunate. Together, they formed a ladder, and Serena had climbed it wearing white gloves. Noor became the first person I decided to find. She had transferred out after the mock exam scandal, and in my first life, I remembered seeing her name buried in an online forum thread where students anonymously discussed unfair school investigations. I searched from a library computer, hands moving faster than my fear. Noor Rahmani, West District. Mock exam, disqualification. Saint Aurelia. Nothing official came up, of course. Schools bury student humiliation under privacy policies. But Ellen found an old debate photo tagged by a cousin account. From there, we found a public scholarship announcement. Noor now attended Halewick's sixth form. I sent her a message that took 12 drafts to make sound neither insane nor predatory. I was a St. Aurelia student. I believed Serena Vale and Mr. Harlow may have been involved in exam tampering. I knew Noor had experienced something similar. I would understand if she did not want to respond. Then I closed the laptop because watching the empty message window felt like pressing on a bruise. She replied in 9 minutes. The first message said only, "Do not use school Wi-Fi." The second message contained a phone number. Ellen and I stared at it. "That's either very helpful or the opening scene of a crime documentary," Ellen whispered. We went to the old courtyard behind the chapel, where the Wi-Fi died near the fountain because St. Aurelia could fund a robotics lab, but not reliable outdoor internet. I called. Noor answered on the second ring. Her voice was flat, careful, not timid. Careful in the way people become after adults turn their pain into a lesson about attitude. Did she cry? Noor asked.
No hello. No explanation.
Yes, I said. A short laugh came through the speaker. Then she was scared. Serena only cries early, when the plan is still adjustable. When she's winning, she lets other people cry first. Noor told us her story in pieces. She had been St. Aurelia's best transfer student, top in languages, quiet but lethal on exams. Before the scholarship mock, Serena befriended her, shared notes, invited her to study sessions, complimented her pronunciation. Then, on mock day, a folded grammar sheet appeared inside Noor's dictionary. Mr. Harlow found it during inspection. Noor was disqualified. Serena cried while defending her, which somehow made the accusation feel compassionate instead of staged. Noor's parents fought for 2 months until the school offered a private compromise: withdraw quietly, keep the incident off official records, and receive a neutral transfer reference. I took it, Noor said. I hated myself, but I took it. My father had just lost his job. We couldn't afford a legal fight. I gripped the phone until my knuckles ached. Do you have proof? Silence. Then Noor said, I have something better than proof. I have Serena's apology. For 5 seconds, even the fountain seemed to stop. Her what? Ellen mouthed. Noor explained. Serena had visited her the week after the transfer was finalized, not to apologize morally, but to apologize strategically. She wanted Noor to know the cheating sheet wasn't personal. She said Noor had become too visible too quickly, and that St. Aurelia needed a stable candidate for national awards. Noor, expecting some kind of cruelty, had recorded the conversation on her phone. But when she tried to submit it, her father begged her not to reopen the case. The transfer agreement had conditions. A leak could trigger legal consequences they could not survive. So she kept the file. I'm sending it to you, Noor said. But listen to me. Serena is not the center. She is the mascot. The machine is bigger. The audio arrived 30 seconds later. Serena's voice, younger but unmistakable, filled my cheap earbuds. You should think of it as being redirected, she said on the recording, almost kindly. Some people are built for pressure, and some people become symbolic obstacles. You were turning into one. I didn't want your future ruined, Noor. I just needed you out of that lane. My vision narrowed. Out of that lane. As if futures were traffic, and she had the right to reroute anyone blocking her family's polished procession. Then came Mr. Harlow's name. Serena said, Harlow handled the dictionary. He always makes it look procedural. Ellen slapped both hands over her mouth. The recording ended with Noor saying, You framed me, and Serena replying, I protected the outcome everyone had already invested in. I had thought revenge would feel hot. It felt cold. colder with every piece of evidence, because the shape emerging was not a jealous classmate cheating for a perfect score. It was institutional. Saint Aurelia sold certainty. Parents paid for proximity to winners. Donors sponsored excellence, then quietly expected their children to embody it. Teachers built reputations on producing champions. The school did not need to order sabotage directly. It only needed to reward the people who benefited when obstacles vanished. Serena was not an exception to the system. She was its favorite daughter. And I, with my repaired headphones and second-hand blazer, had committed the unforgivable sin of refusing to remain disposable. That afternoon, the examination board emailed all candidates. The listening exam results would be temporarily withheld pending investigation. A retest might be scheduled depending on findings. Students groaned. Parents panicked. Group chats ignited. The school released a statement about isolated equipment interference. Isolated. That word made me laugh so abruptly my mother looked up from the stove. "Good news?" she asked. I looked at her tired hands, the small burn mark near her wrist from the clinic sterilizer, the cheap reading glasses she refused to replace because mine were more important. "Maybe," I said. "Something unfair might finally get noticed." She studied me for a long moment. "Mothers hear the things daughters do not say." "Mara," she said, "being right does not always keep you safe." "I know. No, you know it in your head. I need you to know it in your bones." I did. That was the problem. I knew it from another lifetime. The retaliation began the next day with kindness. Principal Bellamy called me into his office, offered tea, and told me I had shown commendable alertness. He was a tall man with silver hair and a voice designed for scholarship ceremonies. In my first life, he had spoken to me only once, to say that integrity mattered more than ambition. Now he smiled like a benevolent uncle. However, he continued, public attention can distort young people's memories. We want to protect you from unnecessary stress. It may be best if you allow the board to proceed without making further statements. There it was, the velvet lid lowering over the box. I looked at the wall behind him, where framed photos showed Serena shaking hands with judges, Serena receiving medals, Serena standing beside the Veil Foundation banner. My own face appeared in one group photo from last year, half hidden behind a taller student. It looked like a prediction. Am I being instructed not to cooperate with investigators? I asked. Principal Bellamy's smile paused. Of course not. Then I'll answer any questions they ask. Naturally. But volunteering unverified speculation could harm your own credibility. I met his eyes. Then I'll bring verification. His smile disappeared for less than a second, but I caught the absence. That was the thing about Rebirth. It did not make me smarter than everyone else. It made me less hypnotized by authority. Adults with polished desks were just students who had grown better at hiding panic. Principal Bellamy leaned back. Mara, your scholarship application is still under school review. I would hate for this situation to distract from your achievements. In my first life, that sentence would have put a hand around my throat. This time, I heard the thread inside it and decided to make him repeat it in his own memory later. Thank you for your concern, I said. I'll continue focusing on my achievements. I stood before he dismissed me. It was rude. It was also necessary. Some rooms shrink you if you wait for permission to leave. Outside, Miss Chun was pretending to rearrange notices on the bulletin board. She did not look at me directly. You forgot this, she said, handing me a folded slip of paper. I had forgotten nothing. I took it and kept walking. In the stairwell, I opened it. One sentence. Check the listening lab inventory from March.
No signature.
My first instinct was suspicion. My second was gratitude. My third, older and wiser, was to treat both as dangerous until proven useful. Ellen found the inventory through the Student Council archive because St. Aurelia's obsession with transparency apparently extended to uploading equipment budgets without password protection. March. 15 new premium headphones purchased through Veil Education Services. April. 12 logged as issued to Language Lab. 3 missing. May. 1 damaged during mock examination. June. 1 discarded due to wiring fault. July. One found in my bag in the first life. A trail of broken headphones, purchased by the sponsor, handled by the coach, appearing whenever Serena needed silence from a rival. We needed someone inside the exam board, but teenage girls do not simply acquire institutional allies because the plot requires it. We had one adult who might help. Miss Chun. She taught literature, not language testing, and had no reason to risk her career except that she had seen the device herself. I waited until after school near the staff parking lot, where teachers became human again while juggling tote bags and coffee cups. Miss Chun, I said. She stopped but did not smile. You should go home, Mara. Did you write the note? Her eyes moved once toward the security camera above the door. I write many notes. Why March? She sighed, and for a moment the teacher mask slipped, revealing exhaustion. Because patterns matter, and because I should have noticed sooner. That sentence held a grief I did not yet understand. Before I could ask, she unlocked her car. Do not contact me on school accounts. Do not store evidence on your phone alone. And do not assume everyone who smiles at you is your enemy. She opened the door, then added, but assume everyone who asks for your only copy is. The next pattern interruption came from Serena herself. She returned to school on Monday, wearing no makeup, which was somehow more theatrical than makeup. Her hair was loose. Her eyes were swollen. She walked through the main corridor with her mother on one side and a school counselor on the other, looking fragile enough to make half the student body reconsider reality. By second period, the rumor had shifted again. Serena had been the victim of a cyberbullying campaign. Serena had been framed by a jealous classmate. Serena had suffered an anxiety episode during the exam, and cruel people were twisting it. At lunch, she stood on the steps outside the chapel and addressed a crowd without officially addressing a crowd. I don't blame anyone, she said, voice trembling. Pressure makes people do things they regret. I just hope the truth comes out without more harm. Her eyes found mine at the edge of the crowd. More harm. Another forecast. Then my phone buzzed. A video had been posted from an anonymous account. The title, Candidate 117 threatens Serena before exam. My blood turned to ice. The clip showed me in the corridor the morning of the exam, speaking to Serena near the lockers. The audio was muffled but edited to make my words sound like, I'll take everything back and destroy your score. In reality, I had said, give my headphones back. I need them for the listening score. The edit was crude but effective because people rarely listen carefully when a video confirms the drama they already want. Comments multiplied. She planned it. Jealous much? Poor Serena. The school group chat became a courtroom without rules. Ellen looked at me, horrified. I looked at Serena.
Her tears had dried.
For 1 minute, I was 17 again in the worst way. My chest tightened. My fingers went numb. The corridor tilted. The old future lunged at me. Accusation, isolation, adult sighing, my mother defending me against people who had already decided. Then something unexpected happened. Adrien, the boy who had lost audio in the French contest last year, stepped into the circle. He was tall, quiet, forgettable in the way schools make quiet boys forgettable until they explode or disappear. He held up his phone. That clip is edited, he said. The crowd shifted. Serena's smile faltered. Adrien tapped his screen and played another video. Same corridor. Wider angle.
Clearer Audio.
My voice. Give my headphones back. I need them for the listening score. Serena's voice, sweet and low. Don't make this ugly, Mar. People already think you're unstable. The silence after that could have cut glass. Adrien did not look at me. He looked at Serena. Last year, my headset failed in the French contest. Mr. Harlow said I panicked because I wasn't prepared. You won by 1 point. Serena's mouth opened. Adrien, I found the service report, he said. The headset assigned to me had the same wiring fault as yours did Friday. More silence. Then Noor's name appeared in my mind like a door unlocking. The machine was big, yes. But machines have victims. Victims remember. Victims keep receipts, recordings, screenshots, service reports, hallway videos, the small hard evidence of being told they imagined the knife. Serena had built a tower on people too ashamed or exhausted to compare injuries. Now, because one device had been found under one desk, the injuries were beginning to speak to one another. By evening, there were 5 of us in an encrypted group chat Ellen set up with a name so ridiculous nobody would suspect its contents. Cake Recipe Club.
Noor joined.
Adrian joined. A former student named Tess joined, a scholarship finalist who had withdrawn after her speaking exam time was changed, without notice. Then came a boy from another school, Daniel, whose regional listening score had been invalidated because his answer sheet supposedly had 2 candidate numbers. Each story had Serena or the Veil tutoring network nearby. Each story had Mr. Harlow, Principal Bellamy, or a school administrator smoothing the aftermath. Each story ended with the victim choosing survival over public war. I did not judge them. Survival is not cowardice. Sometimes survival is the only rebellion available. But now we had more than survival. We had pattern. Noor uploaded Serena's apology recording. Adrian uploaded the service report. Tess uploaded an email from the competition coordinator confirming her correct speaking time, followed by a forwarded correction from a Saint Aurelia account that had vanished after graduation. Daniel uploaded scans of his answer sheet request showing 2 labels layered on top of each other, the bottom one not his. I uploaded the anonymous audio room photo, the inventory records, my headphone receipt, and a written timeline of the exam incident. Ellen organized everything into folders by date, person, and type of evidence. I was born for academic revenge administration, she said at 1:13 a.m., sending a spreadsheet with color-coded tabs. I laughed for the first time in days. It came out shaky, but real. The problem was exposure. Send everything to the school, and the school would bury it. Post everything online, and lawyers would bury us. Send it to the exam board without legal framing, and they might investigate narrowly. 1 exam, 1 device, 1 student. We needed a recipient who benefited from widening the scope. Noor suggested the National Fair Assessment Office, an independent body created after a tutoring leak scandal 2 years earlier. Tess suggested a journalist who had covered that scandal, but none of us wanted our names public yet. Then Adrian said, "What about the scholarship foundation Serena is supposed to receive next month? Not the Veil one. The national one." I knew exactly which one. The Meridian Scholarship. Full tuition, housing, international summer program, guaranteed university recommendation. In my first life, Serena had won it after her perfect listening score made her untouchable. I had watched the ceremony live stream from a storage room at my part-time job, wearing a name tag and pretending my life had not ended. The Meridian Foundation built its brand on fairness for high-achieving students from all backgrounds. If they discovered their finalist record had been manipulated by a donor-backed school, they would not bury the scandal.
They would protect themselves by exposing it first.
We prepared a dossier. That word sounds dramatic until you build one at 2 in the morning while eating dry cereal from a mug because your mother is asleep and you cannot risk clattering bowls. Evidence summary.
Timeline.
Witness list. Supporting documents. Questions for investigators. We did not accuse beyond proof. We mapped irregularities and requested review.
Noor insisted on that.
Make them curious, not defensive, she said. Institutions hate being told they failed. They enjoy discovering that someone else lied to them. I wrote the cover statement. It took me an hour to remove the anger. Anger was true, but truth packaged as anger can be rejected by people who confuse calmness with credibility. I wrote like a girl who expected to be believed because the evidence deserved it. That was harder than revenge. 2 days later, Serena came to my classroom during independent study.
No counselor.
No mother.
No tears.
Just Serena, immaculate again, standing in the doorway while everyone pretended not to watch.
Mara, she said.
Can we speak privately? My teacher, who had clearly been instructed to prevent unsupervised drama, said, anything urgent can be said here. Serena smiled. It's about the exam investigation. I prefer not to distress others. Then write an email, I said without looking up from my notes. A few students snorted. Serena's smile held, but the edges sharpened. You always do this, she said softly. You make people uncomfortable and then act surprised when they stop protecting you. There it was, Not the mask, but the belief beneath it. In Serena's world, protection was a reward for being convenient. I set down my pen. I'm not surprised anymore. She stepped into the room. The teacher stood, alarmed, but Serena lifted both hands as if surrendering. I wanted to apologize, she said, loud enough for the class. I handled your accusation badly. I was hurt, and I said things I shouldn't have. We're both under pressure. Brilliant. She was trying to create a public reconciliation narrative before the investigation widened. If I rejected it, I looked cruel. If I accepted it, she would later claim we had resolved the misunderstanding. The old Mara would have fallen into one of those two traps. The new Mara chose a third door. I accept apologies in writing, I said. Please include what you're apologizing for. The classroom went so silent, I could hear the projector fan. Serena's eyes flickered with hatred, quick and naked. Then she laughed lightly. Still so formal. Evidence usually is. She left without apologizing. By last period, my scholarship application portal showed, under additional review. Principal Bellamy had moved. I had expected it, but expectation does not make fear painless. The scholarship was not just prestige. It was my exit ramp. Without aid, even a perfect score might not save me from debt. For 10 minutes, I sat in the bathroom stall from my first life, the same stall where I had once whispered Serena was a thief, and let myself shake. Not cry. Shaking was enough. Then my phone buzzed. An email from the Meridian Foundation. Subject: Request for confidential interview regarding submitted materials. Ellen had sent the dossier at 7:06 a.m. They responded at 3:42 p.m. Institutions move slowly until their own reputation is on fire. The interview happened over video that evening. I wore my school blazer because armor does not have to be metal. The Meridian investigator, Ms. Ibarra, had kind eyes and a terrifyingly blank notebook. She did not gasp at evidence. She did not comfort me. She asked precise questions in a precise order, and somehow that felt better than sympathy. Had I witnessed Serena physically attach the device?
No.
Could I verify the anonymous photo source? Not yet. Did I have reason to believe school staff participated? Yes, based on the photograph, past incidents, inventory records, and witness accounts. Was I willing to provide my headphones for forensic comparison with the damaged pairs?
Yes.
Was I prepared for the school to dispute my character? The question landed like a hand on an old bruise. I looked into the camera. They already have. That doesn't change the evidence.
Ms. Ibarra paused writing.
Mara, do you understand that if this expands, your name may become part of a formal inquiry? My mother, sitting just out of frame because I had finally told her, inhaled sharply. I reached under the table and found her hand. Yes, I said. But my name was already used once without my permission. Ms. Ibarra's expression changed, not into pity, but recognition. All right, she said. Then let's make sure it is attached to the truth. The next week unfolded like a building cracking from the foundation upward. The examination board confirmed that the device found under Serena's desk could interfere with the audio line and potentially capture or reroute sound.
They did not yet say why she had it.
St. Aurelia announced an internal review and suspended Mr. Harlow. The Meridian Foundation postponed its scholarship decision. Parents began demanding answers, though many still used phrases like unfortunate distraction because admitting corruption threatened the value of the school fees they had paid. Serena stopped attending classes, but remained active through proxies, anonymous posts, sympathetic rumors, screenshots of her crying from stress sent to group chats by friends who had never seen her without ring-light quality sadness. Camille Vale appeared on campus twice, each time leaving with someone from administration. Principal Bellamy began looking thinner. Miss Chin began looking braver. Then the anonymous photo sender revealed themselves. It was Jace Lin, a junior from the media club. He approached me after school near the vending machines, pale with fear, and holding a camera bag like a shield. I didn't know what it was, he blurted. I thought Serena was helping Harlow test equipment. But after the exam, I realized I had photos because I was documenting setup for the school newsletter. I sent one to you, because everyone else would delete it. He swallowed. There are more. He gave me a memory card. My hand closed around it. Why not send them to the board yourself?
He looked down.
My sister is applying here next year. My parents said not to get involved. He flushed with shame. But I couldn't sleep. I understood that more than he knew. Guilt is a ghost that sits on your chest until truth gives it somewhere else to go. The memory card changed everything. It contained 28 photos and 2 short video clips from the afternoon before the exam. Serena in the audio room with Mr. Harlow. Serena holding multiple candidate stickers. Mr. Harlow opening the locked equipment cabinet. A close shot of the black device beside a printed seating chart. And one video, only 11 seconds long, but devastating. Mr. Harlow saying, "If she complains again, we document instability. Don't improvise." Serena's reply was soft, almost bored. "Mara won't complain until it's too late." I watched that clip 3 times. By the 4th, my mother took the phone from my hand because I had stopped breathing properly. There are sentences that kill the last foolish hope inside you. Until that moment, some childish corner of me had wanted to believe the first life was a misunderstanding inflated by cruelty. Maybe Serena had panicked. Maybe Harlow had disliked me and helped afterward. Maybe the system had failed me because systems are careless, not hungry. But Mara won't complain until it's too late was not carelessness. It was a plan built around my personality, my kindness, my fear of making trouble, my poverty-trained instinct to endure first and ask later. They had not merely sabotaged my exam. They had studied the exact shape of my silence and used it as a tool. I sent the files to Ms. Ibarra, the examination board, and after a long conversation with my mother, the National Fair Assessment Office. We did not send them to St. Aurelia. Let the school learn from people it could not summon into an office and threaten with scholarship review. The response was immediate. Not public, but immediate in the way hallways reveal panic before announcements do. External auditors arrived on campus the next morning. Principal Bellamy canceled his meetings. The IT office was locked. 2 administrative assistants cried in the staff room. Mr. Harlow's name disappeared from the faculty webpage by noon. Serena's portrait was removed from the Meridian finalists' display case so quickly it left a pale rectangle on the velvet backing. Serena finally called me that night. I do not know how she got my number. Girls like Serena always know how to get what should be unavailable. I let it ring until my mother looked at me across the table. "Answer," she said. "Put it on speaker." Her voice had changed since I told her everything. Less tired. More dangerous. I answered. For a moment, Serena said nothing. Then she laughed softly. "You really were hiding claws." My mother's eyes narrowed. I kept my voice steady. "Do not call me again." "You think Meridian cares about you?" Serena asked. The sweetness was gone. Without witnesses, she sounded older, colder. "They care about scandal management. You are useful right now. After that, you're still Mara Lowen from a rented flat over a pharmacy." My mother flinched, but I did not. "And you're still Serena Vale, without a stolen score." Silence. Then her breathing sharpened. "My family can survive this." "Maybe." I leaned closer to the phone. "But can your perfect record?" She hung up first. That, too, felt like a score. The formal inquiry began the following Monday. Students were called one by one to provide statements. Some told the truth. Some lied badly. Some cried because they had repeated rumors and only now understood that rumors become evidence of character when adults start writing things down. Camille Vale's social media posts vanished. The Vale Foundation's website went under maintenance. St. Aurelia's board issued a statement promising full cooperation, which is what institutions say when they have been dragged by the collar into cooperating. Mr. Harlow hired a lawyer. Principal Bellamy took medical leave. Serena's mother stopped wearing pearls in public. But the inquiry also turned its light toward me, as I knew it would. My attendance, grades, financial aid status, disciplinary notes, and communication history were reviewed. Principal Bellamy had placed 3 concern memos in my file over the past year, all after incidents where I outscored Serena in internal assessments. One described me as socially rigid. Another suggested I demonstrated heightened sensitivity to perceived unfairness. The third, written 2 weeks before the listening exam, recommended that I be monitored for exam stress behaviors. In the first life, those memos had likely formed the backbone of the case against me. In this life, they became evidence of premeditation. Ms. Ibarra asked me if I had known about them. I said no. My mother asked for copies. The school hesitated. The Fair Assessment Office did not. Reading those memos hurt more than I expected. They were not dramatic. No villainous language.
No obvious cruelty.
Just small professional phrases arranged like stones on a grave. Difficult. Sensitive. Rigid. Unstable. Words adults use when they want to punish a girl without admitting she has done anything wrong. My mother read them at the kitchen table, each page trembling slightly in her hands. They were preparing to hurt you, she said. I took the papers gently from her. They already did once. The words slipped out before I could stop them. She looked up. For one impossible second, I thought she understood everything. The rebirth. The other life. The years of loss. Then she reached across the table and touched my face. Then we don't let them finish. The inquiry widened beyond Serena. That was when the real fear entered the school. Cheating is scandal. Systemic manipulation is liability. The auditors uncovered irregular access logs for the language lab, missing equipment reports, altered seating charts, and recommendation letters drafted before competitions had concluded. Vale Education Services had supplied exam preparation materials to St. Aurelia while also sponsoring events whose winners benefited from St. Aurelia nominations. Mr. Harlow had received consulting payments. Principal Bellamy had recommended Serena for national awards using language copied from Vale Foundation promotional materials. None of this appeared in one dramatic confession. It emerged in spreadsheets, timestamps, invoices, email headers, the unglamorous bones of corruption. I learned then that revenge does not always look like a slap. Sometimes it looks like accounting. Students reacted in waves. First shock, then denial, then opportunistic morality. People who had laughed at me now posted about justice. People who had defended Serena began saying they always had weird vibes. I did not correct them. Hypocrisy was annoying, but useful. Public pressure protected the inquiry. Still, there were moments I missed being invisible. Every hallway conversation stopped when I approached. Teachers became too careful. Friends of Serena glared like I had personally lowered her into the consequences she dug. Once, someone taped a note to my locker. Enjoy being famous, thief. Ellen ripped it down before I could touch it. Do not absorb stupid, she ordered. It causes brain damage. I laughed, but my hands shook afterward. The exam board scheduled a retest for all affected candidates except those under active investigation. Serena was excluded. Her lawyers appealed. The board denied it. On retest morning, I brought my headphones in their worn black case, but national rules required board-issued equipment only. I understood. Trust had to be rebuilt through procedure, not sentiment. The new exam hall was at a neutral testing center across town, with external supervisors, numbered sealed headphones, backup audio, and cameras at every equipment station. It should have felt intimidating. Instead, it felt clean.
No Ivy. No founder statue.
No Serena one desk ahead wearing my future-like jewelry. Just rows of students, a recording, and the terrifying fairness of being judged only by what we could hear and answer. Before the exam began, Adrian caught my eye from across the room and gave a tiny nod. Nora was not there. Her case was being reviewed separately, but she had sent a message that morning. Listen like the world owes you clarity. Tess sent a photo of a coffee cup with "Destroy them politely" written on it. Ellen, sitting 2 rows behind me, whispered, "Cake Recipe Club forever," and the supervisor told her to be quiet. I smiled so hard, I nearly ruined my composure. Then the audio check played. The voice asked us to confirm we could hear clearly. I could. Every word, every breath, every soft click before the recording began. I thought of the first life, the hum, the swallowed questions, my hand raised and ignored. I thought of Serena saying I would not complain until too late. Then I picked up my pencil. The retest was harder than the original. Of course it was. Fairness does not mean ease. Section 2 included a map question with distractors designed by someone who enjoyed student suffering. Section 3 had a speaker who corrected herself twice, which nearly tricked half the room into choosing the first location. Section 4 was a lecture about urban noise pollution, and I almost laughed at the irony of my future, depending on how well I understood sound. But I was ready. Not because I remembered answers from another timeline. Those answers no longer existed. I was ready because I had spent years in the first life learning how to listen through humiliation, exhaustion, and fear. Compared to that, an exam recording was almost gentle. When the final question ended, I knew I had done well. Not perfect, maybe, but honestly well. That mattered more than perfection ever had. Results came 6 days later. I opened mine at 6:03 a.m. while my mother stood behind me pretending not to hover. Listening, 98/100. Overall English score, highest in school. Scholarship eligibility, confirmed. For a second, neither of us moved. Then my mother made a sound I had never heard before, halfway between a laugh and a sob, and wrapped her arms around me so tightly my chair rolled back into the wall. I did not cry when Serena was exposed. I did not cry when Harlow was suspended. I cried then, into my mother's clinic uniform, because victory is not real until the person who suffered with you gets to breathe. Serena's result line showed something different when the board's disciplinary outcomes were released 3 weeks later. Score invalidated. Candidate barred from national language examinations for 2 years. Pending review of prior awards. St. Aurelia's internal honors connected to compromised assessments were suspended. Mr. Harlow's teaching license entered formal investigation. Principal Bellamy resigned to spend time with family, a phrase that did heroic work disguising disgrace. The Vail Foundation announced an independent governance review. Meridian removed Serena from finalist consideration and reopened interviews for affected candidates. Noor's disqualification was overturned. Adrian's contest record was corrected. Tess received a formal apology and a retroactive finalist certificate. Daniel's invalidated score was reinstated. None of it erased what happened. But erasure was never the same as repair. Repair leaves seams. Seams tell the truth. The school held a senior assembly after the findings. The new acting principal, Dr. Sato, was a small woman with a calm voice and the unnerving habit of saying exactly what she meant. She did not speak of isolated irregularities. She said trust had been broken by people responsible for protecting students. She said excellence without ethics was fraud. She said students who reported concerns would not face retaliation. Then she asked me to come to the stage. My stomach tried to exit my body. I had not agreed to a speech. I looked at Miss Chun in the staff row. She gave the smallest nod. Ellen mouthed, "Breathe." So I walked up, every step echoing like a question. Dr. Sato handed me the microphone. 200 faces watched. Some friendly, some guilty, some still resentful because truth had inconvenienced their worship of a pretty liar. I thought about giving the speech adults would like. Humble, forgiving, polished. I thought about saying I only did what anyone would do. But that was not true. Many people had seen pieces of the machine and looked away because looking directly cost too much. I did not blame all of them, but I would not comfort them with a lie. I used to think unfairness was obvious, I said. My voice shook, then steadied. Like if someone stole from you, everyone would see the missing thing in their hands. But sometimes unfairness is quiet. It looks like a broken headset, a seating chart, a teacher's comment, a rumor that starts before you can defend yourself. It works because everyone treats each small thing as too small to challenge. The hall was silent. I looked at Serena's empty seat in the front row. I am grateful the truth came out. But I don't want anyone to pretend it came out because the system worked perfectly. It came out because people who had been hurt kept evidence. It came out because someone took a photo. Because a teacher checked under a desk. Because students who were embarrassed or afraid decided to speak anyway. So if you remember anything, remember this. When a person says something is wrong, do not wait until their life is destroyed before you decide they sounded credible. I handed the microphone back before my courage could run out. The applause began unevenly, then grew.
I did not need it.
But I let myself hear it. Serena returned once more before transferring out. I found her in the language lab after school, standing among the sealed equipment cabinets, like a ghost haunting the scene of her own murder. For a moment, she looked almost ordinary. No audience. No mother.
No tears.
Just a girl surrounded by machines that could no longer be made to whisper in her favor. "Are you happy?" she asked without turning. I considered lying. Forgiveness narratives prefer the victim to be above happiness, floating nobly over consequences. I was not floating. I was standing on the floor with scars in 2 timelines. "Yes," I said. She laughed, but it cracked halfway. "At least you're honest. I learned from dishonest people."
She turned then.
She looked thinner, sharper, less like a golden girl than a blade that had lost its handle. "You don't understand what it was like," she said. "Everyone expected me to win before I even knew what winning meant. My mother planned my awards like holidays. Harlow said if I lost momentum, all the sponsorships would shift. Bellamy said the school needed a national figure. Do you know what it feels like to be responsible for everyone's investment?" In another story, that might have been the moment I softened. Maybe the music would swell. Maybe I would see the wounded child inside the villain and decide justice had gone far enough.
But pain explains.
It does not acquit. I stepped closer. "Do you know what it feels like to be treated as the acceptable cost of that investment?" She looked away first. That was new. "I didn't think you'd fight," she said. Quiet. Almost curious. "I know. You were always so," she searched for the word.
Weak. Poor.
Convenient.
Kind.
Careful, she finished. I smiled without warmth. You mistook careful for harmless. For a second, I saw the exact moment she understood the difference. Then the door opened, and Mrs. Vale entered with Camille behind her. The temperature dropped. Mrs. Vale looked at me as if I were something spilled on marble. "Mara," she said. "Still lingering around other people's tragedies?" I picked up my bag.
No.
I'm leaving mine behind. The Meridian interview reopened in late August. I sat before a panel of 4, wearing the same blazer, but not the same fear. They asked about my academic goals, my community work, my mother's clinic volunteering, my interest in language access for immigrant families, my experience during the investigation. One panelist asked whether the scandal had changed how I understood merit. I had prepared 3 polished answers. I used none of them. Merit is real, I said, but it is not always measured in clean rooms. Sometimes merit is studying after work. Sometimes it is asking for a retest when everyone calls you dramatic. Sometimes it is keeping evidence for a year because you hope one day someone will be brave enough to use it. Scores matter, but the conditions around scores matter too. Ms. Ibarra, seated at the end of the table, did not smile, but her pen paused in a way I recognized. I won the scholarship, not as a consolation prize, not as the scandal girl. I won because my retest score was excellent, my record was strong, my interview was honest, and the reopen process finally removed the hand that had been pressing down on the scale. The announcement came in an email while I was helping my mother label medicine bottles at the clinic. I read it once.
Twice.
Then I handed her the phone. She read silently, lips moving around the words. Full tuition, housing stipend, academic mentorship, international summer placement. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she sat down on the little rolling stool used for patients and covered her face. Nurses rushed over because they thought she was ill. She waved them away, laughing and crying. "My daughter," she kept saying. "My daughter did it, not survived, not endured.
Did it."
The ceremony took place in the City Hall auditorium, not St. Aurelia. I wore a blue dress. My mother altered herself, taking in the waist twice because she insisted scholarship winners should not look like they borrowed confidence. Noor came with her father. Adrian came with his younger sister. Tess sent flowers because she had already left for university. Ellen arrived late, carrying a cake box because apparently the cake recipe club required literal branding. Miss Chen sat in the back, away from attention, but I saw her wipe her eyes when my name was called. The Meridian director spoke about fairness, resilience, and institutional accountability. I barely heard him. I was looking at the empty space where, in another life, Serena had stood in a white dress accepting applause meant for a lie. When I walked onto the stage, the lights were warm and blinding. The certificate was heavier than I expected. Cameras flashed. My mother stood in the front row with both hands pressed to her mouth. For one strange second, the two timelines overlapped. Me in a storage room watching Serena's ceremony on a cracked phone, and me here, alive inside the moment that had once excluded me. I almost stumbled. Then I heard Ellen whisper shout, "Destroy them politely," from the aisle, and the laugh that burst from me ruined at least 3 official photos.
Good.
Let the record show I was not a statue. I was a girl who had clawed her name back from the machinery. After the ceremony, a journalist asked for a comment. I had avoided interviews until then, but Meridian's press officer nodded that it was safe. The journalist asked, "What would you say to students who feel powerless in unfair academic systems?" The question was too large for a hallway answer, but I tried.
Keep copies, I said.
Keep dates. Keep messages. Find people who remember. And don't confuse being outnumbered with being wrong. The journalist blinked, perhaps expecting something softer. I added, because my mother was listening, also, tell an adult you trust. The right adult can change everything. Ms. Chun pretended not to hear. Saint Aurelia changed after that, but not magically. No school becomes ethical because one scandal embarrasses it. Dr. Sato introduced external exam audits, anonymous reporting channels, equipment logs requiring 2 signatures, and a student assessment council that Ellen immediately joined for oversight and snacks. Some teachers resented the changes. Some parents complained the school was becoming too bureaucratic. That made me laugh. Corruption had been bureaucracy too. It had simply worn perfume. The difference now was that procedures protected more than reputations. Adrian's sister enrolled the following year anyway. Noor visited once to speak to transfer students about appeals. Ms. Chun became head of academic integrity, which sounded boring until you saw how terrified certain staff became when she entered a room with a folder. As for Serena, she transferred to a private academy overseas halfway through the term. Her family called it a wellness decision. The internet called it fleeing. I called it distance. Her prior awards remained under review for months, and several were quietly revoked. Mr. Harlow lost his license after the consulting payments and exam tampering evidence were confirmed. Principal Bellamy attempted to join an education consultancy, but Noor's father found the announcement, and the Cake Recipe Club sent the public findings to every listed partner. The announcement disappeared. I am not proud of how satisfying that felt. Actually, that is a lie. I am proud enough. The strangest part of Rebirth is not revenge. It is the quiet after. Once the enemy falls, you still have homework. You still have laundry. You still burn toast if you forget the pan. You still wake some nights hearing the broken hum from the first exam and reach for headphones that are not there. Victory does not erase trauma like a teacher wiping a board. It writes over it slowly, with better evidence. I kept my repaired headphones on my desk for a long time, even after one side began to peel. My father's scratched M remained under the hinge, tiny and stubborn. Sometimes I touched it before exams, not for luck but to remember. What is yours can be taken only if you are convinced you have no right to ask for it back. On the last day of school, I returned to the exam hall. It was empty, desks stacked, sunlight striping the floor through high windows. The room looked smaller without fear in it. I walked to the spot where candidate 117 had sat. My desk was gone, replaced by a stack of chairs. Candidate 118's place was empty too. No device.
No Serena. No stolen headphones.
Just dust floating in the light. I stood there and let the old life come near one final time. The girl who raised her hand and was ignored. The girl who failed by 2 points. The girl who apologized for being framed because everyone looked tired of her pain. I wanted to hug her. I wanted to shake her. I wanted to tell her that one day she would stand in the same room and the silence would belong to her. Instead, I took out my phone and played an audio file. Not Serena's apology. Not Harlow's instruction. Not the listening exam recording. It was my mother's voice from the night of the scholarship email, captured accidentally, because I had been recording a reminder for clinic labels. "My daughter did it," she said, laughing through tears. "My daughter did it." The words fill the empty hall, soft and ordinary and more powerful than any perfect score. I listened until the file ended. Then I put my headphones on, not because I needed to block anything out, but because for once, everything I heard was mine. People still ask why I confronted Serena over headphones instead of waiting for bigger proof. They think revenge begins with grand strategy, hidden files, perfect timing, dramatic reveals under chandeliers. Sometimes it does. But mine began with a smaller sentence.
Give them back.
That was all. Give back the headphones. Give back the score. Give back the name. Give back the future you treated like spare change because you assumed I would be too polite to count the loss. The listening exam destroyed Serena's perfect score, yes, but only because I finally understood that silence had been the first answer they trained me to choose. In my second life, when the audio check played and the room waited for me to endure quietly, I chose differently. I took my headphones back. And for the first time, everyone heard the truth clearly.